All right, hello everyone. So it's spontaneous that I'm giving this talk, and I'm going to speak about Donald Trump's chart. This is something that I've actually been wanting to do, and it's kind of good that it wasn't announced ahead of time because I think there's a lot of energy and emotion around this. So as I do this, I want to say first that I have no intentions of disgracing, making fun of him, or just ridiculing him in any way at all. What I'm doing here is sharing my own perceptions and observations of the soul and correlating it to the chart. And that's how we do astrology. We never look at a chart without actually connecting with the individual first. We have to observe the actual reality of the person. Then we correlate those perceptions to the natal chart. And in turn, what the chart gives us is an evolutionary perspective on what's actually happening within the soul. What are the karmic dynamics this soul comes into this life with? What's the evolutionary intention? But we have to really observe and correlate. We have to observe the reality of the soul first and bring that to the chart. So some who are listening either now or in the recording may not agree with some of these perceptions. And I invite just an open mind and open heart. This is not me trying to convince anyone, but to be respectful and just appreciate that we're all, in the end, only perceiving what we are perceiving. I believe it's important to speak about Donald Trump's chart to really point out the nature of the soul's consciousness. So from this point on, I'm going to be just owning what I say as my own perceptions. I'm not going to be qualifying it anymore. The nature of the soul in many ways speaks to the archetype of deceit and trickery. And to be speaking about this and pointing this out, I feel is important, especially regarding what's happening in the world right now and what this man stands for. So I'm going to bring out the chart. I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. And at any point, anyone is invited to ask any questions. And I'm just going to be jamming with this. So we're going to look at Pluto first. Pluto, in this case, is in Leo in the 12th house. Pluto reflects the bottom line for the soul, the essence of the soul's consciousness. For all of us, Pluto reflects how we're ultimately impelled by desire. And we go for things that we want. We're impelled to create a lifetime, to create an identity, to create circumstances where we can cleave to something, become more, discover more of ourselves, and then release it. Pluto says everything comes and goes. And by engaging in this journey of forming a relationship, forming attachment, letting go and moving on, we grow, we evolve. Pluto also says the only thing that doesn't come and go is source. So Pluto is where ultimately we're on this journey of reuniting and realizing our oneness with source, merging our own consciousness with that which is unchanging. Pluto reflects where there's a possibility of holding on to power, holding on to anything that by its nature wants to come and go. But because of the insecurity and fear and the need to maintain a false sense of control, Pluto is where we can hold on to something, person, experience, and identity beyond its natural timing, beyond where it's useful. So Pluto in Leo in the 12th house represents a soul who has generated desires around egocentric self-importance. The holding on patterns for the soul correspond entirely around the need to maintain 12th house illusion of Leo, importance, specialness. That maintaining that illusion of importance serves the purpose of covering up for the soul this deep fear of void, of emptiness, 12th house. In other words, not surrendering to the void, not wanting to actually move beyond the reality of I'm important, I'm special, because of a deep, deep fear of losing control. In this case, it's a deep fear of not actually being important. We have Mars, which is the higher octave of Pluto, corresponds to how we make choices on a moment-to-moment basis. Mars here is also in Leo in the 12th house. And so Mars is action, motion, movement, choices. This is like the energy of a soul that needs to constantly reaffirm and assert his own will, his own importance, needs to Mars win, needs to be on top. but it's all happening in the 12th house, meaning it's empty. The 12th house carries that energy of total emptiness. There's nothing there. For many souls on the spiritual path, that emptiness becomes a point of surrender. Comes a point of, wow, I'm making all this shit up. Nothing's real. And we become aware of the dream reality. But otherwise, the 12th house can very much become where we're creating a reality out of nothing and holding on to that. Because again, in this case, the fear is I'm nothing beyond that. So the deep need is to maintain this Leo illusion of importance, of grandiose. The manipulation here comes in where relative to the fixation, Jeff Green calls this a separating desire, the desire to maintain separation, which is linked here with the need to maintain control, which means if life is saying otherwise, and I'm holding on to this pattern, I'm holding on this need to be important, I'm going to be impelled, Pluto, psychologically impelled, like an addiction, to maintain that control at all costs. Most souls will have a certain degree of self-awareness or a natural self-reflection that comes up around pursuing certain addictive patterns and ways of manipulation. And we know that a person has really become addicted when they're impelled instinctively by these patterns and there's zero expression, zero awareness of the effects of what they do. So I'm pointing to a psychology of extreme narcissism and sociopathic behavior. And I say that we're observing the soul and we're correlating back to this chart. To be so profoundly concerned with his own importance that there is zero reflection of other people. The Pluto polarity point is Aquarius in the 6th house. So in this case, when we look at the Pluto polarity point, it's not about a thing you have to become or a thing you're actually doing. It reflects in the consciousness of the soul itself. In this case, this would be using one's specialness, one's talents, one's gifts, one's fame, one's importance, Leo in the 12th, as a way that actually serves humanity. Aquarius in the 6th. One second, I'm getting a little shivery. I'm gonna zipper up my jacket here. Okay. In a way that actually benefits and does something good for the common people, Aquarius. So we really want to see how is he using, there's nothing wrong with being important. There's nothing wrong with a healthy dose of narcissism and self-importance even. But is it actually serving? Is it all about just him? And so you'd want to see his actions, what he's doing in his life. Does it point to that Pluto polarity point? My personal view, my observations is it's not. The ruler of this Pluto and the ruler of that Aquarius, the polarity point, they're both in Gemini in the 10th house. It's the Sun ruling Leo and Uranus ruling Aquarius. And they're both conjunct the North Node. So when you have planets on the North Node, that corresponds to energies that had been very well developed within the soul prior to this lifetime. So we're looking at the 10th house. 10th house is business. 10th house is president, it's nation, it's country. It's where we're working within parameters and structures and rules. 10th house also corresponds with ethics, that notion of doing what's right. Doing what's right based on the awareness of my actions are part of a larger society and I'm affecting other people. We can have planets in the 10th house that correspond to a deep awareness of wanting to do the right thing according to external social standards that may be very conditioned. We can also have a soul in the 10th house where they're not at all concerned with doing the right thing. They're not aware of the effects of their actions. It's almost like a child that may not have a very well developed sense of ethics. So there's a sense of, I can do whatever I want. And that's where we have parents will have to, maybe say, don't do this or do this. So we see that he's a business person, right? That's his whole life. He has a very keen awareness and skill at that. That's that 10th house on the North Node, very developed. What are his ethics? What do his actions actually reflect about his consciousness. Uranus corresponds to groups of people. And so in many ways, we can have this signature, Uranus and Gemini in the 10th house, that is very attuned to creating structures in life, 10th house, doing business, 10th house, in a way that is supportive and unifying to all different kinds of people, Uranus, that actually creates more support and well-being to minority groups, Uranus, people who don't fit into the mainstream, Uranus, groups that are financially, economically not within the mainstream status quo, Uranus. He'd be doing things in this world that are actually good for, Uranus is the common people. Uranus also corresponds to special elitist groups of people. And so you'd want to look, how has he affected communities of people? How has he affected various subgroups of the population of this country? And you just look at the history of his business practices. I had this article that talks about, because I come from New Jersey, so I'm actually really familiar with Atlantic City and the whole Trump casino world out there. All that failed. But I read an article that talked about the profound effects that he had on the community, the devastating effects that he had. He attracted a lot of people and also created a sense of, come, this is going to be a really great, grandiose, a wonderful experience. Greatest casino in the world. Lots of talk, right? Gemini, lots of talk, knowing how to, Gemini in the 10th is masterful 10th house at duplicity, Gemini. Knowing what to say to who in order to affect whatever they're trying to affect, to succeed, 10th house. Gave a lot of people jobs, talked people up, and then left them hanging. There was zero concern with the devastation he created in the communities. And there's a lot of gentrification, all the places where he's created casinos and built his work. There is zero concern with actually benefiting people, actually working with the people that needed his support. But he created a lot of promises of wealth. That's Neptune in the 2nd house. Promises of wealth. Promises of everyone's going to be wealthy, it's going to be great, we're going to do so well. And just the nature of a casino, by the way, is the greatest manipulative scheme out there. Its basis is about attracting people to lose money. Otherwise, you won't make profit. So, and you have to have all kinds of schemes, all kinds of ways of creating more return in your direction and less in the people's direction. That's the very essence of it. He has Neptune in the 2nd, ruling the 8th house. 8th house is about other people's resources. It's about business contracts. It's about divorce and marriage. It's about how we form and connect and relate to other people and take from other people. It's about debt. So Neptune in the 2nd is kind of creating this big, massive wealth based on attracting people, in a sense, manipulating people's resources, people's energy for his own personal gain. So back to this Gemini in the 10th house, this is really a clear evolutionary astrology perspective. With these signatures, Sun-Uranus conjunction, we're looking at a life's purpose that's about, we can say, on the one hand, liberating from existing status quo, 10th house, existing from the boxes, moving from the boxes, and building his own life, his own reality. And we'd want to see the signature and then say, okay, if he's really about uniting all people, in a recent speech that he gave, he was talking about, I'm a president for all people. And I mean that. And if that is his truth, we'd really want to see a history for this soul in this Uranus 10th Sun signature, where his actions actually reflected that, where he wasn't just orienting towards himself and benefiting only certain wealthy people. Uranus is where we form community with certain kinds of people, friendship. And the question that I would ask is, who are his people? Who is he bringing into his cabinet? What kind of diverse, he's draining the swamp of politics, he said he wants to. And we can argue whether that's actually happening or not, but we want to see a diverse group of people that reflect a way of life and an ethics that really resonates with all kinds of people. But who is he bringing in? one person is known for being totally racist. He said, I think the guy's name is Jeff something. He said something like, fear of Muslims is rational. Trump wants to create a Muslim registry. Whether he will or not, whether that's actually going to happen, I don't know, but he wants to. He believes that Muslims are celebrating in New Jersey after 9/11. That's not true. There's no evidence to actually back that up. So he has these perceptions, and he's bringing in people, Bannon from Breitbart News, known as an alternative right, news media source online. And the alternative right is also known as being racist, anti-Semitic, and sexist. Trump expresses that in his life. So again, that lack of awareness of how he affects and traumatizes other people. It would be fine if he was doing things, business practices, and maybe every once in a while people were hurt in the process, or maybe once in a while he did sexist things, and then he would express profound humility and self-awareness. He doesn't. After the tapes came up about where he spoke about women in that, the whole, like a month ago, about the tapes that he was saying about doing whatever he wants with the women and because he's famous, things that are profoundly traumatic. And I want to say, to be now president must be profoundly traumatizing for so many women that heard that. With the profound degree of sexual, domestic abuse and violence in this country and the world that's still happening. For him to say that, and all he said was, yeah, I shouldn't have said that, but it was just locker room banter. And then the next thing he said was, he pointed to Bill Clinton. He said, there are many claims of sexual abuse and harassment that have come my direction. They're all lies. None of it's true. And he said, and that one woman over there, look at her. Do you think I would do that to her? What do you think? The fact that he said that means that maybe if she was attractive, he would. His response to all of these claims, his response to the whole world being profoundly pissed and traumatized by what he said was a very little bit, okay, I shouldn't have said that, and then so much defending himself. If there was any awareness of how he's affecting all kinds of people in this world, if these chart signatures pointed to an awareness of not just himself and his own importance, but other people as well, then he would be expressing awareness and self-reflection. He would say, I want my presidency to be empowering and good for women. Well, he doesn't. He doesn't care about that. He would care more about the things that he does, the actions that he makes, really supporting those who need the most support. Those who are most, Uranus in the 10th house. I mentioned Uranus. For some reason, I'm shivering. Maybe it's because I'm talking about this. Uranus, as I mentioned, corresponds to groups of people. And wherever we find Uranus, it's always going to be where there's a mainstream flow, there's a mainstream movement in society. And if we're living in a society that only focuses on conformity, certain people like white Christian male, for example, if you're white, you're in the mainstream. If you're Christian, you're in the mainstream. It's going to, in fact, de facto create an oppressive reality for many souls that don't fit into that. So we'd want to see him wanting to reach out. Last year, you might remember when Starbucks made their cups non-denominational, they took away the Christmas logos. That makes sense. As a Jewish person, I'm like, thank you for, making cups that aren't appealing only to Christian people. We're living in the United States, which is supposed to be about all of us. Trump was so angry. He got so pissed off at that. And he said something like, when I'm president, there'll be Christmas in every store. The fact that he said that points to his profound degree of religious and cultural, obliviousness to the fact that there's more than just him out there. And we have the Sagittarius South Node in the 4th house with the moon. That reflects a soul that not just makes emotional assumptions, that the very nature of his identity, how he knows himself from within, is based on familiarity with his truth, his knowing, his way. And 4th house is where we feel safe. And Sagittarius is where we expand our reality. It's where we come to find our truth. So here it's his world, his worldview, his race, Sag, his culture, his understanding of reality. That's where he finds home. And this is an interesting sort of conflict or duality within the soul, that Sag is opposite that Gemini in the 10th house. Gemini in the 10th house is, here's a nation, 10th of all kinds of people. Gemini, point of views, perspectives. And then Sag in the 4th is my people, my tribe, my familiarity. The tension within the soul here reflects, how do I do work in the world, sharing my own truth, honoring my own way, my own truth, my own knowing, with consideration and respect to all kinds of people. And we'd want to see him taking his own intuition, his own wisdom, his own personal truth, his own culture, and being able to then respectfully live in a way that is actually empowering and supporting people that are not just like him. But he always has, and he predominantly is surrounding himself with people that, and just look at his cabinet again, people that share the same xenophobic, racist, sexist reality as himself. Jupiter rules that south node in Sag in the 4th house. So that's the self-interest. Jupiter in Libra in the 2nd house. It's all about, okay, I can take what I want. Jupiter is, in the sense, as a Sag, where we will tend to unappreciate and alienate people that are not like us. So speaking about, here's an example of this. Sag in the 4th house. He laughs at Black Lives Matter movement. Sag in the 4th house can, on the other hand, be, 4th house, empathic, sensitive, compassionate towards people of color, Sagittarius. Caring and nurturing to people that are foreign and different than himself, but he can't see it. He laughs at that. Bannon, in his cabinet, says that Black Lives Matter movement, the activists are a bunch of crazies. So that reflects the nature of his consciousness. It's where we get to alienate and thus kind of put out the energy of, I'm right, you're wrong. And thus you're not included here. You're not valid for being what you are. And so then Jupiter in Libra in the 2nd house is Jupiter alienating other people relative to his own psychology of entitlement. I'll take what I want. Jupiter in Libra in the 2nd house can know expansion to no end. I'm going to use other people, Libra, as a commodity, 2nd house, where other people become possessions according to my own self-interest. And I'm entitled. I have the belief system, the belief structure that allows me to do this. This Jupiter squares his Venus and his Saturn. And Cancer in Venus in Cancer with Saturn in the 11th house says a lot about the trauma to women. Here's an example of this. He used to judge beauty pageants, Saturn, beauty pageants, Venus, Cancer, 11th house, groups of women coming together. That's a beauty pageant judger right there. And he spoke about judging these pageants, and he would come into the rooms, and he said that was one of the perks. He can walk into the rooms unannounced whenever he wanted to. He actually said that. And he's been known to say very derogatory, shameful Saturn things about women and their body, Venus, degrading their beauty. So traumatizing 11th house groups of women, Cancer in the 11th house, about their beauty, Venus. 2nd house, Venus rules that 2nd house, square in the 2nd house, self-worth, survival. All relative to his own, well, I'm going to make you a possession and commodify you and take and do whatever I want to do with you. It's clear that that's the nature of the soul's consciousness. That's how he's operated. That's how he's related to women. That's how he acts. And that Jupiter in the 2nd house, it's conjunct Chiron as well. It's really important to pay attention to what's happening right now. I was convinced that with Pluto right now squaring Jupiter, that all the lies would come out. Perhaps it still will. And it kind of did. But in the end, it didn't seem to matter. He still became president. And that really reflects, and this is the last thing that I'll say, I think, in the time that we have. Maybe actually if someone can just remind me, do we have 30 minutes or 40 minutes? This is the thing about...
Ari?
Yeah.
We have 13 minutes to go.
Okay, great. To go or total?
Total, 13
Okay,
minutes.
yeah, got it. So lying is Sagittarius, duplicity is Gemini. We have this all over his chart. So straight out lies, like literally making shit up, saying whatever needs to be said, that's Sagittarius. Kind of like exaggerating a reality and making things up that aren't true, and just saying things that aren't real. Like he said, there was voter fraud, and that's why he lost a popular vote. There's no claim for that. It's just a statement he's making. The duplicity in Gemini is it's creating logical constructs that seem to make sense, but are just a distortion of facts. Fact and opinion are the two sides of Gemini. So we have in this chart a soul that exemplifies time and time and time and time again, making things up, saying whatever he wants to say, and taking facts and data and bending that according to, being able to use trickery and making things seem real. His sun in Gemini rules Leo in the 12th house. So he's masterful at making things seem real, at talking about words, using expressions of ideas that present a certain logical reality. But if you actually analyze and take it apart, there's nothing there. A lot of people say, what's the difference between him and other politicians? Sure, a lot of politicians are liars and corrupt. But what I think is most important, and why it's important for me to actually speak, I don't usually do this, why it's important for me to speak about this chart and this soul is because what I perceive in this soul, it's beyond just being a lying person. It's beyond just being deceitful. I'm actually perceiving a soul whose very consciousness, the very nature of his consciousness, lacks appreciation and awareness of anything outside of himself. And he denies climate change. And even if you deny it, he denies the importance or relevance of how we act in relation to the earth. He's exemplified through his actions that he's narcissistic, sexist, and that he's oppressive towards women. He's expressed in his words that he believes Muslims are to be feared. These are scary things. He said, we have nuclear bombs. Why don't we use them? He said it 3 times in an interview. He's expressed, and that's that Mars and Leo in the 12th house playing with weapons. Like, oh, good. I'm powerful and important now. Deep within his consciousness is a deep fear of being victimized. That's that Pluto and Mars in the 12th. I don't want to be victimized. And he's had a memory in the past of being hurt and oppressed by other people that were more powerful than him relative to the desire to be on top and be in control. He's determined himself for that never to happen. That's why he needs to win. It's not good enough that he won the electoral vote. Now he's needing to somehow create the reality, even though he's making it up, that he even won the popular vote. And people would know that if there wasn't this voter fraud that he said happened. He needs to win. It's a deep insecurity. It's that reality, that deep insecurity, and how he's expressed total hate for other people, carpet bombing the terrorists and their families. He's friends with Putin. Research that. Putin is pure evil. And the fact that he's, for many years, even before his presidential campaign, he's talked very good about Putin. He admires him. Look up quotes all over the place about how he respects Putin. That's something to be afraid of, to be mindful of. So I share all this information because I perceive within Trump a profoundly sociopathic, narcissistic reality that, okay, maybe he'll evolve, maybe he'll be great. I love him. I've had dreams where I'm feeding him. So there's love inside there. But it's important that we're aware of the profoundly deceitful nature of this soul and his true reality. And I believe that it's true for his nature. He'll do anything on the backs of anyone for his own gain and importance because there's a deep need within him to win, to be on top. And when that's his bottom line, that is dangerous. When being on top and winning is his bottom line, we need to be aware of that. Okay, so we have 10 minutes left according to this clock. So I'll open up for questions, unless we have to stop now.
Wow. Oh my God. I'm speechless over here. Well done. Oh my goodness. That's a lot to take in, and what a task of sharing what came up for you. I really appreciate that. Did you just do this on the fly?
Yeah.
Oh my.
I mean, I've written some of these things out before, but I actually didn't post it. I'm a part of Kaipacha's community.
Yeah.
But I actually started talking about it, but I decided it wasn't the best environment. So this feels good.
Now this was profound, and you touched on so many points. I've been very active on the political for a few months now, because I feel like I have to be at this moment in time. It's quite important, and yet at the same time, what you brought up, it's like you have PTSD just going through as a woman, and you have friends who are, in diverse groups, and all of this, it touches on every single one. And so you are challenged with dealing with your trauma of what's happening in the moment, but also you have to take action, and it's kind of that balance right now. Thank you.
Totally. And that PTSD point, Uranus corresponds to where we actually create, or we can create trauma for other people. Uranus in the 10th house is separating a nation. He separated his political party, separating the nation and creating more and more division. It's the very opposite of a healthy, progressive expression of that Uranus. And I want to say, I know a lot of great souls with Pluto and Leo in the 12th. So I just want to clarify that this chart doesn't inherently point to the things that I've said. He does. And I'm correlating it back to the chart.
Ari, can I ask a question?
Please.
Okay, I'm looking at the difficult aspects in his chart because this is a pretty easy chart, which is why he gets away with all this crap. Saturn in that 18 degree closing degree to Pluto, and Mars in the 46, is it 46, 20, and 26 opening. What can you say about those shadow aspects and maybe any sort of wake-up call that's possible in this chart, if there is even such a thing? Because the nation itself has Saturn balsamic right now to Pluto. So it's interesting that he's born with that.
Cool observation. Thank you for speaking that. So the nature of the balsamic fate between Saturn and Pluto corresponds to, bottom line, the dissolving of the structures that we've created in our conscious, how we've structured our reality, how we've conditioned our own consciousness, and ultimately letting go and dissolving so that a new cycle can come through. And that is happening in the world right now. It's a big purging and completing process. But what happens during that balsamic phase is, relative to the total fear of things ending, those who are wanting to hold on to control, maintaining the status quo Saturn, maintaining the existing structures and the forms, not wanting change, because it feels like everything is slipping away, it naturally brings up in this completion process the need to bring a lot of attention and create meaning and build up a very large reality around exactly that which is ending, exactly that which is dissolving. So this is reflected in this consciousness as well. And relative to that Pluto and Leo in the 12th, this is going to say, here's a soul that is at the apex of what he has created right now. And he needs to create and affirm a very strong and solid reality around his importance. And Saturn in the 11th, the community that he's creating, the world that he is creating, and the justification for his morality, and why it's okay to be what he is and to do what he does and act the way he does and to create the trauma. He needs to really uphold that and become completely solid in that, specifically because it's balsamic, because there's nothing there, it's falling away. But this also reflects, balsamic is where we have no control. So as we know, it's happening in the world and what's happening ultimately within this soul. This is something he cannot hold on to as much. And that's the thing about Pluto. Ultimately, we can try and effort and manipulate forever, but the force of evolution is greater than anything we can ever do. So all that has to dissolve as well. Thanks for bringing that up. I think that's a great observation.
And then Pluto is 46 to Mars. Did you talk about that?
Pluto is 46. What do you mean?
Mars is opening, and an opening, the opening semi-square to Pluto?
In his chart?
Yeah. Mars is in the opening 45 degree aspect.
Not to Pluto.
Mars? Okay. Oh, no, 16. Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Ari, this is Wendy. One thing when you were just talking about the Saturn in the 11th, so for him to really let go would be so traumatic to his own soul, right? He would go through this whole cataclysmic internal experience, which of course is what he's trying to avoid, which is what you've been saying.
Yeah.
And I so appreciate you doing this. And when you said I'm shivering, and you said you were zipping up your coat, I was like, oh yeah, because you're having an experience, right? Talking about all this. So I really felt that, and I really, really respect you for coming forward and doing this and speaking it for all of us, or many of us that feel the same way or relate it that way. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, yeah, please.
One thing I was thinking about is the south node of Uranus, right? Which I think for most of us on the planet, it's like 11 degrees. And Neptune has squared it twice. And it happened in August at 11 degrees and in April. And now it's going to go direct again. I think it's at 9 degrees through the rest of the year. And I think, yeah. And then I guess in like February or something, it'll be at 11. So that would be an interesting piece to look at. Neptune, the duping of the whole collective.
Absolutely. And I'll just point out here, you spoke about the south node of Uranus. So here's his south node of Uranus right there on his own south node as well. And that south node of Uranus is being squared right now by transiting Neptune, which is right here in Pisces. It's in the 7th house. But Pisces in the 7th is like Libra, Neptune in Libra. It's, I'm a good guy. I'm likable. All that kind of stuff. Can create the false reality of I'm giving, but actually I'm not giving anything. So all this squaring that's his own south node, and also the collective, that south node doesn't really move very quickly, but recognizing it's on his own lunar south node, I think that speaks to exactly what you're speaking to here. It's actually bringing up and releasing more of the trauma, Sagittarius, to people of different races and cultures, to people minority that don't fit into the mainstream group, and religious ideologies and beliefs that have become oppressive to all kinds of people that don't fit into the mainstream. This is part and parcel to the soul's consciousness. He comes from realities of having been fixed in a way of life that is about me and my world, to the disregard of other people that aren't like that. That's what that south node, Uranus on the south node, implies to me. So I think we're going to see more of that coming through and being revealed within the collective. Right now is Standing Rock, and this is very, very relevant to what's happening with Uranus in Sag, the south node of Uranus in Sag, and all that energy squaring it right now.
Yeah. And what do you think about Saturn coming around? Saturn's opposing his Uranus now, and it's going to conjunct his south node.
God, yeah. Yeah,
hopefully.
Hopefully that Saturn will point out the truth. It's like, here's the truth of what your actual reality. This is actually what's real. You said this, but this is what's actually real. And Uranus, I think one thing is we're going to have a lot of people coming out against him. If any kind of legislation or ideas are being put forth that are inherently oppressive, we're going to have a lot of pushback against that. But who knows? He's been doing on a personal level pretty well with Saturn in his 4th house so far. I just think it's going to bring out more of the truth. He's probably going to have to become, this is what comes to me, he has to become more solid. He's becoming president, so he has to form a really solid image right now. He has to get
have to be an authentic image, because everything is false.
So he's going to, and it won't be. He's going to actually create a very, that's the whole thing about him. It's never going to be an authentic image in my view, but it's going to be the image that he's choosing to create. And I think a lot will come up with that Uranus. I don't want to speculate, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting time for sure. One last thing I'll just say as we're closing is, again, I don't want to offer this in any way to shame the soul or anything like that. To me, it's just really